I'm Chris Landreth, and I'm an independent filmmaker and animator from Toronto, Canada. I gave a really short version of the masterclass earlier this week, an hour version. The full version that I teach is 42 hours, and that can take place over an entire semester. I'm currently teaching this at the University of Pennsylvania as a semester class in their fine arts department. And it can take the form of a boot camp. Like something it's just compressed into a week, and it's like a long day each day for 6 days. And I've been developing this class over about 4 years' time. I first taught this course at Seneca College in Toronto. That's where I have done my last 3 films with the National Film Board. And since then I've taken it on the road to DreamWorks in both their California offices and also their India studio in Bangalore. I'm actually about to take it to Sweden. As soon as I leave Stuttgart, I'm flying up to Sweden to teach it at University West in Trollhättan. I've taken it to Paris. I taught it at the École Georges Méliès a couple of years ago. I am taking it to China, actually, which is really interesting, with the Didao Masters Academy. I was there last year, and looks like I'm going back this summer to teach it again. It is kind of an elusive art, and I've been obsessed with the subject of faces and animating faces for a little over 20 years now. I first got obsessed with it by seeing master classes by some of the great pioneers in this in CG, like Bill Reeves from Pixar, and Keith Waters, Fred Park, a lot of other early researchers in this, Nadia and Daniel Tallman. These are guys who were really starting to study this stuff in the early 1980s. And their work came from sort of a single point source, and that would be a behavioral psychologist named Paul Ekman. And I immediately started getting into this, study, this basic research that no one really had ever done before like the mid-1970s, about how we're actually using our faces universally, like everyone, all human beings, how we all use our faces in these very clear ways to express sadness and anger and surprise and fear and happiness. And it's kind of amazing that this is such recent research. Charles Darwin was doing research on this in the 1850s, and he was the definitive guy on this subject until, as I say, just about 40 years ago. And I sort of came on about 20 so years ago, starting to research this stuff, and it was like, wow, not too many people really actually know what's going on with facial expression, with how we really, as human beings, express ourselves compared to how cartoon characters express themselves. It's what actors know by instinct, but they wouldn't be telling you about their zygomatic major muscle, etc. So it's kind of the research into how these muscles work and how they work together that has given rise to this, I think, explosion amongst some people of being able to do animation, recreation of real people's faces because of this insight that is just lovely to know about. It's lovely because it really ties not just into the mechanics of a face and how to, photorealistically do that, but it ties into our psychology. It's the stuff, the emotions that make us unique, things like micro-expressions, where you may be pleasantly conveying some nice story, but then an unpleasant thought comes in the middle of that story, and suddenly a little muscle like down here, muscle like the triangularis, for example, causes you to frown or grimace. Like I think just did one right there. That's a muscle called the risorius muscle. And knowing what those muscles are tremendously important, and a lot of fun to explore, and the psychology that comes behind that, always lurking under the surface. That's the stuff of story. That's the stuff of characterization. And if you can master that stuff, and not many people have, I don't think, you have a lot of power in being able to tell your story on film. Think about animating a body. is that your human body is controlled, I mean, all of us, face, body, whatever, is controlled by muscles. Most of the muscles in a human body have one purpose. They pull over one or two joints. And of course, when it pulls over one or two joints, the joint moves, like the elbow, as you mentioned. And that's great. The animator then moves the elbow. Animator doesn't necessarily have to know that it's a combination of biceps brachialis and maybe a little bit of secondary triceps action combined with a little bit of the rotator muscles of the forearm. The animator doesn't really need to know that as long as the bones are moving right. But we human beings are created, well, animals in general, but particularly human beings are created with this weird set of muscles in the face. And those muscles are different than the rest of the muscles in the body. The rest of the muscles in the body actually function to move you around. But the muscles in the face don't attach between two bones. They're only there to move the skin of your face. So, I mean, it's actually, you kind of wonder why there would even be muscles there on the face that aren't really serving any purpose to move you around, like with bones. And, I mean, the reason is that we have evolved to be expressive. We have evolved to be able to show our faces, to show our emotions to other human beings. We are evolved to be able to flap our mouth up and down and to form our mouths into visual and sonic positions in order to be able to speak. The facial muscles on us distinguish us as human beings, as intelligent and emotional human beings from everything else, all other animals out there. That's all those muscles are there to do. So it's important, because those muscles are there to show emotion, that the animators know a little bit about what those muscles are and what they do and how they combine together to make these incredibly complex expressions that we do.